Welcome back to the Capture Your Confidence podcast. Today, we are here talking about confidence in the pivot and how you can rebrand and reinvent yourself with confidence.
I love this. Why do we hate the pivot so much?
Well, I just think we make up this story about who we are and what we're good at and what we do. And we get so committed to the story that anytime the story changes, we have to go through this like identity death and rebirth. And it feels very uncomfortable. And, we're just telling ourselves all these stories about how we can't or why we're not suited for it. And I think it really does impact our journey to confidence for sure.
Yeah. And I think, there used to be a time where people did one thing forever and ever and ever.
Tell me you haven't had your parents tell you that they think you're crazy for changing paths, because they are just like this. Like they lived in a time where this is what you went to school for, this is what you became, and this is who you were.
Yeah. And so I think generationally, as we have become more used to being nimble and flexible and pivoting and changing, hopefully it's become more normalized. But I think we're coming from a place where that was pretty taboo. Like something was wrong with you if you weren't able to make it in one industry for 45 years.
And maybe that's why we have such a hard time, because we feel that judgment or that skepticism from our parents. And we have a really hard time reckoning like, well, I should want to be in this career for 45 years. I should stick with this thing. And so we're hearing that from the adults, elders, right, in our lives. Yeah. And we're having a really hard time reckoning with the fact that inside we're changing and we want something different in our life.
Yeah. So, okay, walk me through a couple of your career pivots.
Oh my God. Listen, do you have all day? I have been an entirely different person, what feels like 100 times. And, I don't think that it's any easier every time I have a pivot. I'll be honest with you, because I just feel like I have a lot more to lose each time. So, in the beginning, when I went to school, I came out of school and I went into the nonprofit sector, and I thought that's who I was going to be. Right. And then I had the food blog era. And then I had the direct sales era. And then I had the coach era, and then the marketing era. It's felt like, again, a totally different person every single time. And I will tell you that I knew I wanted to pivot way earlier than I was willing to do it. And honestly, it hasn't gotten shorter each time. You would think, oh, the more someone pivots, the quicker they'll make the decision to pivot. No, I hang on like a hair in a biscuit. I fight it so hard.
Yeah. Do you know why?
Yes, I do know why. Because I feel like I want to be 100% certain if I'm going to go through the process. I know how much work it is. I know how hard it is. So if I'm going to do it, I need to be certain that it's the direction that I want to move in for, not ever, but for a good foreseeable future. Yeah. And there have been some pivots that I've wanted to make that I haven't made because I felt like it was too far of a jump from where my brand was.
Yeah.
Right. Like there was this time period in my life where I really wanted to be a romance writer. Right. But I wouldn't lean into that because I'm like, well, that has literally nothing to do with anything that you have done in the past. Like all of these other things, you can make the bridge, you can make the connection between, oh, she was doing this and now she's doing that. And that makes sense. That's a sensical jump. Yeah. But anything to romance novelists is not a sensical jump. Like it doesn't make any sense.
I do remember that era.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
She's not dead. She's still here.
I love that. Okay. So here's another question. As your confidence journey has evolved, what is the impact that it has had on the pivots?
I no longer question my ability to pull it off. I just question different things, right? Like, do I have the bandwidth to pull it off?
Yeah.
Am I going to go in with my whole peach on this one? Like, do I have all of the gumption and the energy to do this to the caliber that it requires? Not, can I do it? I don't question, can I do it? I know I can. It's, do I have what I need in the tank to do it?
And that's such a big difference.
Yes.
Right?
A huge difference.
Yeah.
And, I think back on all those times where I hesitated on making a pivot, and I look back and I think, gosh, I wish you would have ripped the Band-Aid sooner. But I do think there is so much mindset work and discovery that has to happen behind the scenes before you can do it. And so, whether it took me a year or, 6 weeks to make that decision, does it really matter? Because all that work had to get done anyway.
Yeah. And I love too that even just highlighting those numbers as examples, a year or 6 weeks, like the pivots take a while. They're not, even if you have the thought, I think sometimes it gets a bad rap because it feels rushed or it feels like you haven't given something a lot of thought. But most of these pivots are happening in the background for a long time.
One of the things that I have noticed about your era of pivoting that I respect and admire so much is that it's never an or, it's an and. And so you have done a really great job of pivoting back and forth in between, serving in the court in the capacity that you're in now versus running for office. And it's never been an or, it's always been an and. And I think it's really cool because you could tell yourself so many stories about, well, if I run for office and it doesn't work out, then, does it discredit my ability? It's like all these, again, these stories, but you never once, like you just very seamlessly were like, okay, we're doing this. And if it works out, great. And if it doesn't, and I'm still doing this thing and I'm still qualified for this thing.
Yeah. No, thanks. And I also think that is the same approach I have with doing the podcast and still working at the courthouse and having the other 85 and still being a lawyer. And one thing that I hope people can see and recognize is that you get to do it all. You get to do the and. Like, it doesn't matter. You can do it however you want. I think that's what's the great thing about a pivot. You can pivot away from something into something, do two things simultaneously, take a break, come back. You get to call the shots.
I will say something that I've noticed in conversations with people is they are hesitant to make a jump into the pivot because they feel like they've wasted their time building the previous step. So let's say you spend a decade in fundraising and then you are thinking about becoming an entrepreneur. It's like, well, I'm giving up 10 years of progress or climbing a ladder in a career. It's like, no, ma'am, you're not giving that up. You acquired that knowledge. You built that skill. You are taking it with you. And I don't know what it is about this idea that we consider it a waste, that it's like gone because we've chosen a different direction.
Yeah. No, I mean, we just had a great conversation with Nettie Haynes, who talked about all of the skills that she learned in a previous role and how seamlessly they translated into her current entrepreneurship role. And they're actually two of the most unrelated industries, right, that you could come up with. But I think it all builds on each other. It's all part of your journey and your story, and it strengthens your skill set wherever you want to take it.
Yeah. And I think too, like for those of you that are worried about how people might perceive you, because I do think this is the thing that hangs people up. And listen, I'll be the first to say, the reason I have not become a full-blown romance novelist is because of fear of judgment. Clearly, obviously. So I'm not trying to speak to you as some like authority in that space, but more just resonating with you. If you're worried about the way that people are going to perceive you, honey, they're going to perceive you however they're going to perceive you anyway. Like, you really can't control that. So maybe I'll start writing the next novel. I don't know.
So if you're listening to this and you're someone who wants to take a pivot, what are some practical steps for how we might encourage someone to approach it?
For sure. I mean, I think the first step is remembering your experience and your authority. Arming yourself with the knowledge that the things that you did in the past become skills that you will use in the next phase, not things that just disappear, but things that you'll use in a different manner.
Yes. And you're kind of bridging that gap between where you are and where you're trying to go. And I think that not only helps you gain confidence, but it also shows you how transferable your skills are.
Yeah, I love that too, because, if I look at some of our other friends and the pivots that they've made, it wasn't a light switch. It was a small nugget here and a small nugget there, right? Like, if we know somebody who wants to become a public speaker, they don't just completely rebrand their LinkedIn profile. Rather, they find a couple of places that they can test the waters and speak. And then they perfect their talk, and then they take it to bigger stages. And then the next thing you know, maybe they've added it to the tagline of their bio. And then eventually, maybe a year from now, they've changed their full bio, right? Like, it's not like this is who I am now with literally no proof or experience. They've built over time.
Yeah. And that's a great tip too, is to just really create that transition plan of what should this look like 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year down the road, so that we have a little bit of a roadmap to help us get where we're trying to go.
For sure. Especially for those of you who are trying to step into a lane where you really feel like there's a lack of skill that I need.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Like, spend that time going to school, getting a mentor, hiring a coach, practicing the skill, right? Like, if I were to open a bakery tomorrow, I would want to spend months or years honing the skills and tweaking the recipes and like getting it right. So think about what steps or what skills you'd need to acquire, and then start practicing those skills so that by the time it's go time, you feel way more equipped to do the thing.
Yes. I remember when I was starting the Other 85, I would offer to coach people complimentary and give presentations for free.
Yes.
And I would do it in exchange so that I could videotape myself in your nice, pretty office and have a little bit of collateral to take with me. But it was really just trying to get good at the thing and put myself in the space so that when the transition fully happened, I was more comfortable with it. People were comfortable seeing me in that role. And it was just a smoother transition.
Yeah. And I think part of this process that you really need to lean into if you expect success in a pivot is to let go completely of the timeline. Now, you can use deadlines to hold yourself accountable, to push yourself forward, but take the arrival off the map entirely because you have no idea how slow or how fast it's going to come. And I have had pivots in my life that felt like a slog. Like it took me multiple years to do it. And I've had ones that felt overnight.
Yes.
And I could not have anticipated which ones were going to be fast and slow because there's so much at play that you're not in control of, the way people respond to it, how many people you already know that could be allies in helping you pull it off. You just don't know until you're in it. So let go of when you arrive at the destination and rather put in place some benchmarks of these are the things that I'm going to do and by when I'm going to do them in order to help build that skill, get there, whatever the thing is.
Yes. And something else I just thought of as you were talking is make sure that you have some grace about the transition and you are not being negative about where you're leaving because that's bad energy, first of all.
We don't want that juju, babe.
Second of all, you may have to go back there for one reason or another. But three, I think it just really impacts your ability to go where you're trying to go with the right energy and the right attitude. So don't be like knocking where you came from.
Dude, I love this advice so much. And I will tell you, I have learned more from you in terms of not burning bridges than anyone else that I know, because I have even seen you in some pretty, like, not contentious, but like I've seen you navigate things where you're like, I would rather just close that chapter and literally never revisit it again. And you've handled it with such grace and people have such respect for you in the way that you've handled it. And so it's way easier to navigate the map of where you're headed when there aren't bridges burned out that you can't cross back over again. Like if you need to backtrack and find a different route, you better hope that bridge wasn't burned so bad that you can't use it and walk across it. So I love that advice. I think it's really important to keep in mind whenever you're thinking about that transition plan.
And the last tip I think that's important to share is you are in control of the story that you tell. So you get to craft this new narrative of how you want the pivot to come out and how you want to share the story of the transition.
I love the example, any change that's made in your life, you can make it sound bad or you can make it sound good. And I think it's all just finding the highlight. So even if it feels like it looks like you're taking a big hit, like maybe you were the CEO of a company and then you're stepping out on your own to like build your own business, you have no clients, right? Like that, if you position it that way, of course, that sounds not great. But if you change the story and you say, listen, these were the things that I was noticing in my role as a CEO. And what I really want to do is help people solve this problem using that experience, right? And so you're positioning it in a different way so that it sounds like a value add and beneficial to the person that you're helping, right? So you get to control how it sounds. Don't call your business little if you don't want it to sound little, right? Like that's the thing that drives me nuts. People are like, it's just a little thing I'm doing on the side. Like, no, if you don't want it to be little, stop calling it that. You control how you talk about it for sure. And then I think another thing that you can really do as you're trying to step into that pivot and push things further along is to let the people in your life know what you're trying to do. You got to be willing to tell the people what you want.
Yes. Yeah. You have to make it easy for people to help you and for people to root for you. And the more that you do things in the dark, the harder it is for people to help you. I mean, how many people have we talked to? They are starting a new business. They are starting a new venture and they don't want to tell anybody.
Because they don't want to look silly, embarrass themselves, or make other people feel like they have to hire them or use them.
And meanwhile, we have like 10 referrals at the ready of people that would love this service.
Yeah, like how am I supposed to connect you to people that would be your clients if you don't tell me you're looking for those kinds of clients?
Yeah.
When if I'm your friend, would be so happy and willing to do that.
Yeah.
Right? And then finally, practice the daggum elevator pitch. Like if this is a new narrative, if this is a new thing you're doing, practice it in the mirror. Practice saying it over and over again so that it comes naturally, because in the beginning, it will not.
Yeah. Get comfortable with that uncomfortable part of it, especially if this is something that is very new for you. If you've been in your old role for a really long time, it's just going to have a little bit of that learning curve.
So we want to hear from you. Talk to us about some of the pivots that you've been wanting to make that you're holding yourself back from, or maybe some of the lessons that you've learned in past pivots and how you take them forward in the next venture. You can drop them in the comments, and we're so happy to be able to hear more about how you stepped into your confidence through the many different phases of your life and your career.
Yes, we will talk to you soon.
Bye, y'all.